Eagle News Mornings from Canada. I'm Thomas I. Likeness, 7:20, 28 degrees in Metro Manila. Well, it's hard to take this warning too seriously. Now, as you know, relations between Canada and China have deteriorated over the past several months, and this is all over the arrest of two Canadians about a year and a half ago. That arrest followed the arrest of a Huawei executive in Vancouver on an American extradition warrant. Courts in Canada is still trying to sort that one out. Now China is warning its own citizens to exercise caution if they come to Canada. The warning from the embassy says Chinese citizens should pay close attention to the local security situation. They say there's been frequent violent actions by police. However, the warning does not give any specific examples of this alleged violence. Well, we have drive-thrus for fast food, drive-thrus for banking. Drive-in movies are making a comeback. Let me tell you about a drive-in art gallery. Organizers of a Van Gogh show in Toronto weren't going to let the COVID-19 virus get the best of them, and they've offered art lovers a drive-in option. You can see it up here on the screen. Now, this exhibit was supposed to have begun in May, but was delayed because of the pandemic, and it was just got underway a few days ago, because the lockdown in Ontario kept museums closed. The exhibit actually has two viewing areas. They're in this huge Toronto warehouse. Now, one area has social distancing circles on the ground for those who prefer taking their art in on foot. But Corey Ross, one of the producers of the exhibit, says the other is for people in cars, and they can drive right into the building.
Drive-in is pretty neat because you've never had an experience like this in your car. Of course, you have your own environment, so if you're concerned about safety, it's superior. You sit inside the car, the projections are on your car, they're on the car beside you, and the feeling is almost as if the car is floating through the art. Then the drive-in's important because it's allowing people who are older or who have immunity issues to get out of their homes, and I'm happy that we're able to provide that.
Well, how did the patrons react? What did the customers think of this exhibit? Here's what a couple of them said.
I thought it was a really interesting take on using his artwork with multimedia technologies and combining it into just an immersive experience.
The show was excellent. I totally enjoyed it. Vantage point was good. 360 viewing. Extremely well worth the money. It was safe with all the stuff that's going on in the world with the COVID. It was an experience. It was great, and I thank you.
Somehow he just doesn't look like a connoisseur of fine art. But anyway, the warehouse has space for up to about 10 cars at a time in designated parking spots. Car engines have to stay off during the production of the artworks, which is accompanied with music. The paintings, of course, positioned so that people can see them through their windshields. And quite an undertaking. Well, this was a short flight for Canadian soldiers headed to Latvia for a NATO mission. The military plane they were on was forced to turn around. Fears that the troops on board had been exposed to COVID-19. You see, after the plane left an Ontario military base, Army officials learned that someone on the base had tested positive for the virus. Military official says that person could have come into contact with the 70 passengers and crew members on the plane. The official says the health and well-being of the soldiers and Canada's allies in Latvia is a priority. So what do? They turn the plane around. The soldiers will be quarantined for 14 days at the base before they're redeployed. The incident won't have any major effect on Canada's mission in Latvia. Canada's incidentally got about 540 soldiers over there. They've been leading a NATO battle group since 2017. Well, Canada's only major baseball team is coming home. Joining me live this morning in Toronto is EBC sports reporter Zarita Sessi. Zarita, I guess the players must be relieved to get out of that hotbed of COVID-19 that they faced in Florida.
Good morning, Tom. And yes, for now, some of the Blue Jays are safe. So with the start of the new look MLB season just weeks away, the Toronto Blue Jays were able to get government clearance in order to return home and host their training camp on home turf in the Rogers Centre. So just as a reminder, players were to start reporting to their market teams by July 1st for training camp, and so the Blue Jays actually requested permission from all levels of Canadian government to head back home for training camp. This decision did come amid the rampant increase of cases of COVID in Florida. So some of the team did arrive in Toronto on Sunday, but it was reported today by Jeff Passan of ESPN that a number of players actually stayed back after an unspecified player tested positive for COVID. It was also reported that those who did have direct contact with this player also stayed behind. Though the team did get clearance to host their training camp at home, there's still no indication as to what the team will do once the season actually starts. An argument that would allow them to host their home games would be the luxury of having the Toronto Marriott City Centre Hotel actually attached to the Rogers Centre, making it much easier for teams to quarantine in one area. As we get closer to opening day, players from all over the league have actually been vocal about their thought process, and some have actually made a decision regarding their future for the 2020 season. So one player that has made that decision is former Blue Jay and now LA Dodger pitcher David Price, who confirmed this weekend that he will be sitting out for the rest of the season. In a social media post, Price said that this decision was made with the health and safety of himself as well as his family in mind. In addition to Price, current American League MVP Mike Trout of the Los Angeles Angels has come out and said he is still not comfortable playing despite all the precautions that have been put in place by the league. So with COVID cases continuing to increase in various cities throughout the league, we may see more and more athletes actually make that tough decision to sit out for the 2020 season. Reporting from Toronto, Canada, Zarita Sese, Eagle News. We live in interesting times.
Couple of questions before you go, Zarita.
Yeah.
And again, I'm just asking opinion here. We're allowed to have opinion, especially on sports. But do you think this is going to snowball the number of players sitting out? I mean, we've seen more and more. Is this going to snowball to the point where they can't play?
I think having a caliber player like David Price, who's up there, coming out and saying they're not comfortable, I think it'll encourage other players who already aren't comfortable to say, I'm not going to play this season. And again, I've always stood by saying no one's going to fault anyone for not playing this season, given that the COVID cases continue to increase, especially in the United States.
Is there a critical number that would have to sit out before they just throw up their hands and say, we have nobody to play these games?
At this point, I don't think any league has come to a consensus about what would be their max. I know that's a question that a lot of people are asking about the NBA, MLB. At this point, I think because it's financially driven, they will take anybody to come, maybe even from minor league, to play to continue this season.
Zarita, thanks for joining us this morning and bringing us that update, and do stay in touch with us.
Thanks, Tom.
Make EBC your top source for wholesome, entertaining, and informative programming. You know, if you're looking for the latest news in business and technology, watch Daily Insight. Hosts Mayanne Gerson and Randy Bernardino share inspirational stories behind small and medium business enterprises, as well as providing useful advice on starting your own business. Daily Insight, another great program for your network in interesting times, EBC. That's our program for today. On behalf of the Canadian News team, I wish you all good health. Take care of others. Take care of yourselves. Stay home, stay safe, and stay tuned to Eagle News for accurate and balanced coverage of the COVID-19 pandemic and other current affairs. In Edmonton, Canada, Thomas I. Likeness, Eagle News. We live in interesting times. Stay tuned for Anong Say Yo.